Well, hey Crosskart fans, welcome to day 2. Now, I could have done this the same day I built a jig, but I'm like you guys, I'm a normal working dude. So I only get to work on this, a couple hours a day, maybe a full day on the weekends. So I'm just gonna break this up like you would build it. So today, I'm gonna be cutting, bending, and notching all of this beautiful chassis tube. All right, so we're going to start cutting and bending the tubes for the chassis. So the plans are written in build order, not in cut order. So pay attention to what material you're using. The first few are 1.5 inch, then it switched to 1.25 inch, then it goes back to 1.5 inch. So make sure you're reading this for every one so you don't accidentally cut the wrong diameter tubing when you're making this. All right, now again, I am stretching this one. If you're not stretching it and just building it to the 102 inch Crosskart regulation chassis, don't stretch it. But if you're a tall guy, want some extra room, and you're not planning on sanctioned racing in Europe, then you can probably go ahead and stretch it yourself if you want. Make sure to notate it before you make your cuts, because your second two tubes that you cut are going to be, I'm doing +3, but however much you want to stretch it. So C3 and C4, and then also C18 and C19, and then C10 and C11. I'm just going to notate that on the plans so I don't accidentally cut it. I'm going to actually cross out the number and write the new number. So. There you have it. All the 1.5 and 1.25 is cut. It was super easy. Everything's labeled, ready to go. And this is my leftover of the 1.25. So I probably could have saved another 30 bucks, but like I said, I like having the leftover. Now it's on to bending. We have a lot of tubing sitting in here, but don't be intimidated. We're not bending all of this. Only about 19 or 20 pieces get bent. So it's not too bad, and it's actually pretty fun to take a straight piece of tubing and make it into a shape and then see that shape come together. So first we're going to need to prep the bender to get ready for bending. Get my magnet stuck on there. I have an 1.25 die on there right now, so we gotta switch the dies. So this is a Rogue Fab M600. The plans are written around this, but you can use a different bender. Other people have been successful doing so with the JD squared or with a different style of bender. Now, it still needs to be a bender that has some sort of CLR. It can't be the Harbor Freight roller bender or anything like that. So we're just going to swap out the main die. I love this Rogue Fab bender. So this bender really kind of opened up what I felt I could do. I used a different bender before this. It was JD squared, and it was a great bender, like you've seen in a previous video and when I compared them. But just the way that I can make the bends exactly where and how I want them makes me feel like I can do anything. It's a good feeling. Now, this is a solid investment. It's a solid investment. Building what I have built, I would send these guys like 50 bucks a month, just in appreciation for giving the consumers this kind of machine that just makes fabricating so much easier, and to really open up where your imagination is your limitation, not your tool. So thank you, Rogue Fab. And I hope you guys can figure out a way to make an investment in getting one of these, because you'll be the same way. You'll feel like you can build anything. And I can't wait to see what you guys build. Now I'm going to go ahead and set out all of my 1.5 clamps. I did buy extra clamps because this is what makes it easier. you set your bends before you ever put it in the machine. So the roll bar that has 4 bends in it, I put 4 blocks on it, put it on a level surface, and those 4 bends are going to be absolutely perfect because of these. So thank you again, Rogue Fab. So let's talk about bending. All right, the first bent piece is C3 because C1 and C2 are just, they stay straight, the front and rear of the floor. Before you bend anything, you're going to want to mark a consistent center line on this tube because that's how your notches line up. So I just have a piece of, I don't know, I think it's 3/4 by 3/4 angle iron. Anything that just has a straight line where you can mark one end that's the same. Mark so far in. Mark so far in on the other side as well. I got my super heavy duty marker for this. So now you have reference from left to right all the way down the tube, so your notching cut wrappers will fit on perfectly and you'll be able to make perfect notches. So let's talk about bending. This first piece has 2 bends in it. Now this is, if you are stretching the frame, this is one that is plus 3 inches or plus however many inches you do. All of your bend locations are from the start. So the first bend location is at 3/4 of an inch. So all you do is come in here and you mark it at 3/4. And your second was at 34 9/16, which changes to 37 9/16 because of that extra 3 inches. All right, so now it's just a matter of putting the 2 blocks in those 2 positions. Now it's going to be the outside radius, so it's going to be the bottom of the block. All right, now as you see, I've just turned it on its side because I have a good sight of my mark where the bend location goes. I have good eyesight on center line that I marked, and I can get to these bolts and tighten them down. So what an ideal way to set up your bends. All right, so we have our clamp blocks on. Next thing is just to put it into the bender. Now, I can go on and on about Rogue Fab. These guys have made just an incredible bender for the consumers. It's so easy to make straight bends. If you've ever used another bender, you know that when you bend something, if you have any kind of rotation, if you go to put it on the floor, it's floppy. It's so hard to get bends aligned in a horizontal bender or any other kind of bender for that matter. This one, like, I know these blocks are lined up, they were put on a level surface, so I know that when I put these 2 bends in, they're going to be perfectly level with each other because of these blocks. Enough about that. I know I'm wearing a Rogue Fab shirt. I'm not sponsored by them, but I do buy shirts every month because I enter the drawing to hopefully get a free bender so I can give a bender and some plans to a subscriber of mine. And they make awesome work shirts. If you want to make things, the better tools you have, the better stuff you're going to make. It's that easy. All right, so let's bend. We got it loaded in the machine. I bend them in reverse order. So this tube, C3, has 2 bends in it. I'm going to bend it last bend first and the first bend last. That way I can just keep feeding it in the machine. I don't have to worry about taking out the pressure die or any of that. It just works easier that way. I'm on a 4.5 CLR because that's what my dies are. And then I'm going to just hand pump this a little bit. This is how you know if it's tight or not. So I'm just going to hand pump this, and when I feel pressure on here, there you go. That's how I know it's getting ready to start bend. There we go. Any more and it's going to start bending it. So I'm going to reference this at 0. I'm going to make sure this is tight, and then take my magnet, turn it on, put it on the magnetic block that goes on top of one of these bending blocks, and then I'm going to hit reference because this isn't level. It's at 0.08, which would be fine, but all you have to do is hit reference, and it changes to 0. That means any kind of bend we put on it is going to be a direct relation to how it is now, which is level to the machine. So the first bend is 16.7. The spring angle, because you need to overbend steel, hopefully you already know a little bit about this if you're watching this, but You have to overbend steel because it's going to spring back a little bit. 0.095 should be pretty close to that 18.9 degree spring angle, but that doesn't mean just crank it to 18.9. I would start like 18.5 and then work your way up. Now it's pretty easy. You just crank it to what you think is the spring angle or just shy of it, and then you release pressure until you can give this a twist, and that's what your bend angle is going to be when you pull it out of the machine. It's so brilliant. So brilliant. Let's get this bent. All right, let's get you a close-up in on the action here. So right now we're at 18.72. This is tight as can be because it's bending it right now. So I'm just going to unlock the valve, release pressure slowly until I get a turn on it. There you go. So our bend right now is 16.4 degrees, and we're aiming for 16.7. Now we're only 0.3 of a degree off, so this would definitely work. Or we can just pump it up. I stopped at what, 18.7? So I need another 0.3 of a degree, so I could take it to like 19.1. So it's however you want to play with it. But regardless, I know that when I take this tube out, the bend angle of it is 16.4 degrees. I don't have to check it anywhere, like it's already checked. I could go on and on about Rogue Fab. Thank you, Rogue Fab. You have done so much for home fabricators. All right, let's get this. I'm gonna tidy it up that 0.3. There we go. We were shooting for 16.7, and we're there. That's within 1/100 of a degree. It's so cool. All right, so now that we know this bend is good, we can pop our magnet off. We can relieve all the pressure on the die. We can release this, and I'm just going to remove this block and then slide it to this block and make the second bend. There we go. Slide that off, and you can see our line for the outside radius is perfectly aligned for our notcher. And all we do is slide this in. Plug that into 4.5. It's ready to go. Close our valve back up. Give it a couple pumps. Feel for tension. There's that tension. Make sure you're at 0. Reset your angle finder. Plop it on there. Hit the reference button. You ever heard the phrase, you get what you pay for? Well, you get way more than what you pay for when you get a Rogue Fab, because they don't charge that much. For what these machines they can do, they don't charge that much. Look at that. No wobble whatsoever. That is completely flat, completely square. It's a completely perfect piece made in a home garage. No wobble at all. Look at that. No smoke and mirrors. You just saw me pull that off. It's perfect. So let's get the rest of these tubes bent. All right, so now it's coming to the hood and windshield union. Now, these aren't going to line up perfectly, but you can fix that in assembly, and the sleeves we put in here are going to line everything up. So you can see just a little pinch and they're going to line up great. So the first step is to cut 2 minimum 4-inch sleeves out of the 1.25 inch to slide in here on both sides. For a good butt splice, you want a sleeve and you want to drill holes on either side so that you can weld all of it together, not only from the tubes but in the seam, so when you put it together, leave a slight gap. So we've got our holes drilled for our butt welds. We're just going to slide these in. Make sure it covers the holes on both sides. Optionally, you can tack one side in and then put the other side in. But I like to do a test fit of pretty much everything. Now see how it's just going to self-align? There we go. All right, so we know our jig is perfect because it's square. We measured everything perfectly. So we can just slide this in. So I can actually use the jig to get this exactly where and how I want it. There we go. Now I can pull it off and finish the weld on a nice flat surface. All right, so here's a close-up look at it. I've got my holes welded. I've got maybe 3/16 of a gap, and my weld is contacting all three pieces. So you start in the channel and work your way out so that all three pieces are welded to each other. All right, builders, we've come up to the rear uprights. They're the longest pieces. They're the most complicated bends of the build, but they are completely doable. Now, I personally make this easier by investing in 6 of these tube retaining blocks for the bender. What this allows you to do is it gets the bend set up before you ever put it in the bender. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the left, and then I'm going to use the other 3, build the right, lay them next to each other, and visually inspect all of the angles left to right to make sure it's correct. And this is totally doable. You can do this. You can do all of this. So we're going to put it in our little line marker. Now what this establishes is the outside radius. Now everything in the plans is from the start. So we're going to measure out the bend locations. Then we're going to slide our blocks on. So this far side is going to be the start. I do my bends in reverse order so that I can set all these blocks on there first. Actually, we're going to use this as the reference. Rotation is 0. Now, bend 2 is a rotation of -5.9. So we're going to need to elevate this on the ends so that we can rotate it. So make sure your block is at its special spot. Let's get it finger tight. Now, -5.9. So we're just going to rotate it to 5.9, and then we're going to tighten it down. There we go. And then our last piece is -4.8, so it's in the same direction that we twisted it. And then go to 4.8. Yes! So that's it. This piece is done. Now we can check it. There we go. So this one's level. This one's just about a degree more than that one, both to the same side. So this piece is ready to go in the bender. Now we get our second piece, get our lines on it for the notching, and we mark our lengths. Then we get our other set of blocks. And we're going to index our outside diameter off of our first bend. Now we're just going to rotate this the opposite way. So if you went left the first time, go right this time. And then again, go the same direction to 4.8. These two pieces are done, ready to go in the bender, and we know they're going to be perfect. So now when I was talking about indexing your pieces and matching them left to right, and we can visually see that all the bends are exactly opposite of each other. Check this out. You take a look right down the line, and you can see that they are the exact opposites of each other. So now we just put this in the machine, bend it to the specs in the sheet, and we have two perfect rear uprights.